What happens when everything you relied on disappears? And how do you keep going when life expects you to anyway? We have all faced moments like this setbacks, losses, or unexpected changes. It doesn't matter your age, your experience, or how prepared you think you are. Life just keeps moving, and somehow we have to move with it. Hi, I'm Rekha Dirusha. Welcome to Next Step, a space for honest conversations about resilience, growth, and what it really takes to rebuild when life shifts beneath your feet. This is not about having it all figured out, it's about showing up anyway. I was in a really deep depression after my husband passed, like staring at the wall for hours level. And my coworker Mike decided he was personally responsible for rescuing me. Apparently, he appointed himself my emotional support human. So he tells me, you need to go to the gym every single day. At that point, I would have agreed to anything. Someone could have said, Rekha, climb the tree and scream, I'm a squirrel. And I would have said, sure, why not? So I started going to the gym very casually, once or twice a week. I'll do a workout, walk out exhausted, and think, yes, I have paid my dues. I'm released from suffering until tomorrow. But then one day, Mike, an actual Iron Man, casually says, this isn't working. You need to set a real goal. Why don't you do a triathlon? Excuse me, I don't run. Me, I'm terrified of water deeper than my bathtub. Me, my bike is older than the internet and probably weighs more than me. And also me. Yeah, sure, sounds reasonable. So I said, yes, I'll do a triathlon. Once I committed to doing a triathlon, I threw myself into it completely. Determined to do this triathlon, I decided to join a triathlon club. I walked into it my first meeting and I saw young, fit people wearing sport specific gears and bike and helmet, probably more expensive than my car. Instantly, insecurity hit me like a ton of bricks. I wanted to turn around and leave. Just as I was about to sneak out, the group leader called my name, Are you Rekha? And just like that, I was officially in. There was no turning back. A few days later, the coach scheduled a run assessment for me. He pointed to a finish line that, to me, might as well have been in another country. I ran, I huffed, I puffed. I stopped about 100 meters before the finish line and gasped, I can't run anymore. So he looked at me and said, you're not puking. You still have more in you. So go. And I ran to the finish line. Yes. But that stuck forever. Now I push past every limit, physical, mental, or emotional. Next, he scheduled a swim practice at the bay. Open water, real waves, unknown depth. I stood on the beach, watched everyone swim off calmly, and I froze like a garden statue. No movement, no breath. Absolutely not. I'm not doing this. So he suggested I take some private swimming lessons from a triathlon swim coach. So I took private swimming lessons. I went every week. I tried, I splashed, I flailed. Improvement minimal. One day I thought maybe if I look cute, I'll feel like a swimmer. So I ditched my sensible Speedo for a fancy bathing suit. Huge mistake. I swam my laps, came back to the edge, held on to the wall, and waiting for feedback. The coach was staring at me with a very complicated expression. I kept talking, oblivious. Finally, he said very gently, "You might want to adjust your swimsuit." My boobs were fully out. They were having their own conversation with the chlorine. I wanted to sink into the bottom of the pool and live there forever. The next week we laughed about it. His wife apparently was mad at him because he didn't tell me sooner. But we were forever bonded by that shared boob trauma. I was buzzing with excitement about this triathlon. So naturally, I went shopping, new bike, fresh running shoes, fancy workout clothes, everything that makes you look like an athlete. Even if you can probably make 2 laps in a swimming pool. But I started showing up at 6 a.m. gym class, the toughest one. Dark, freezing mornings, muscles screaming, lungs burning, and I made friends there. People who pushed me, encouraged me, and laughed with me when I struggled. I biked, I ran, I swam in the pool even after those brutal workouts. And I loved it. Every exhausting, painful, glorious moment. But open water, that's a different story. I could not stand on my 2 feet out there. That part of the race, my courage hadn't caught up with my training. So finally, I asked my one of the friends that, "Would you mind doing the swim part? I'll handle the bike and the run." And she actually said yes. So for my very first race, I didn't end up doing a full triathlon. She did the swimming, I did the biking and running. I was proud of my triathlon that had turned into a duathlon, but also frustrated and disappointed. I wanted to do the whole triathlon, not just the part that didn't make me imagine drowning. So after the race, as I was picking up my bike, I noticed a bright purple tent with LLS written across it. I knew that LLS trains people for endurance events in exchange for fundraising support. I stopped and I asked the woman at the tent, "Do you train people for triathlons, especially swimming? She smiled and said, yes, call the office. They'll share the details and help you get started. Something shifted in me right then. A small but steady spark of hope. Maybe this was the way forward. She handed me a card. I slipped it into my pocket and headed home. I didn't know it then, but that tiny moment, that purple tent, and that card was the beginning of something huge. Because that's what eventually led me to Mount Kilimanjaro. What started in fear and uncertainty slowly became something bigger than I expected. It reminded me that growth doesn't always begin with confidence. Sometimes it begins with simply saying yes. Next time I'm taking you behind the scenes of climbing Kilimanjaro. The brutal training, the crushing discouragement, ridicule from others, the discipline and the mental strength that had to be built long before I ever saw the mountain. Because the summit doesn't start at the top, it starts in the preparation. Thank you for being here today. I hope you will join me. Until then, keep showing up, even if you are unsure, even if you are scared. And remember, you are stronger than you think. See you next time at the next step, right here. Bye bye.